Okay, so for my new friend who I met, I'm going to take a cue from her, and I want to put the lyrics up of a song that I have. It's actually out right now. If you want to look it up, shameless plug. It's under Rashad Ease, and it's actually called Hip Hop Forestry. So it's the first song of its kind. It's the first. It's not the first in the movement because there've been plenty of artists. Matter of fact, in my opinion, I think people who express themselves to fight for the world on a certain level, you are artists, because that's usually what it takes. People who use their voice a lot of times are like artists on a certain level. So what I have up is the third verse of the song, okay? Now what I would do is just call in response, like, you say this hip hop forestry, but I'm not gonna do that, okay? But if you go listen to the song, you'll get why I said that. So I'm just gonna read this. It says, it's hip hop forestry. Forestry's the practice, hip hop is the religion. Both made by humans, both imperfect, so make a new tradition. This is hip hop forestry. Our trees are not a commodity. They are teachers showing us how to live. Well, now it's got taken off. Show us how to live in harmony. This is hip hop forestry because both rose from the underground. One changed landscapes, the other changed the landscape of sound. This hip hop forestry. We're not scared when people or bugs approach you. We don't just worry about POs, that's parole officers. We worry about CO2. And I say that it's funny, right? But in hip hop, if those who listen to hip hop, and especially mainstream hip hop, a lot of what you hear is people talking about the hood and talking about gang violence and talking about, and I'm going to even say very misogynistic in the lyrics, you know, downing women at times, so on and so forth. And a part of it also is the struggle that people go through when dealing with the justice system. So that's why I said we don't just worry about POs, we also worry about CO2. Hip hop, so CO2 emissions, just go to the next line, emissions. We don't do carbon copies, meaning that we don't try to, and if we're supposed to reduce the carbon footprint, that means that I don't also have to be like you. And you don't have to be like me. One of the things that happens, I think, when people enter institutions or agencies or organizations where you're one of the few or you're the only one, if they value your intelligence and your brilliance, they say, give it to us, Thomas. Like, we want that. But then the other thing that happens, and I don't think that people, especially if you're in the leadership, you probably don't realize that you're doing it, but you're chipping away at people's individuality. Because then you want them to assimilate and acculturate to the culture of the place. No disrespect, but in a lot of places, the culture is screwed up as it is. That's partly why people like me get hired. So I'm like, why the hell am I going to assimilate to you anyway? I like being black. We cross-pollinate culture and we respect our water bodies, basically bodies of water. This forestry hip hop, we are related, we respect forms of life. You can't treat me worse than a pet. Something about that ain't right. And what I really should have put in there is you can't treat me worse than a tree. Something about that ain't right. There's a lot of people who care about the environment, which is good, but don't give a damn about people of color. They'll fight for the environment. Like I have students who love being black, will fight for what's black, but what I challenge them to, I'm like, but do you celebrate being black every day? So when you're always defending something, that to me, that doesn't necessarily tell me that you love it. It tells me that you got to battle with it yourself too. There's an insecurity around it. Because you haven't embraced it, you're always defending it. But when you've embraced it and you've redefined it and internalized it for yourself, you don't necessarily have to always defend something because you speak with the passion and the facts as well as the truth so people can receive it. This forestry hip hop, in different forms, we dialogue and debate. In forestry hip hop, you can't own what you didn't create. Now I'm leaving that to the foresters in particular. And anybody that's a person who owns land, how dare you think you own something that you didn't create? I'll say it again, how dare you think you own something you didn't create? Now, if I have a child, not that I should own him or her, but that's my child. I brought that child into the world, so I have to give him or her what they need. I have to give it. But the forest in particular, we treat, I think, the forest sometimes like we treat people. We put limitations on what we do, and we shouldn't do that. We should definitely think long term. Just like I should think long term with my engagement with you, I should be thinking long term about the environment. We listen, in forestry hip hop, we respect life because life is a value. Life itself is the value. One of the problems we have is the way we value things. Right? Like if I had a big afro up here, now I'm balding, so I can't do it anyway. But if I had a big afro, how would you receive me? And if I had a big afro with a dashiki and I threw up the black fist, how would I be received? Hopefully with love. Hopefully with love. But what I want to ask you is, what would you hear as I'm talking to you, though? Would you actually hear everything that I'm saying, or would you hear an impression of what you think I'm saying based on what I look like? I did a talk in Wisconsin in January, said nothing about politics. It was all about diversity and equity in forestry. And when I got off the stage, someone said, that was a very political talk. And I was just like, I said nothing about politics. I didn't even say anything about Trump. How'd you get that? But when I'm challenging people's thoughts about how they feel about something, I think people go, they go somewhere, and where they go sometimes is not even where I am. What's that? That's people having a different experience, even though we all sitting in the room. People are having a different experience under the sound of my voice. Everybody's not feeling the same, and everybody's not receiving it the same. Just like when Mark was up here, everyone didn't feel the same. That happens all the time. This forestry hip hop, inclusion is retribution, not just seeking solutions. See, that's how we try to codify diversity. They say diversity is only, it's great for seeking solutions. It's more than that. But it's great for helping us seek solutions because I'm learning from other people. This forestry hip hop, inclusion is retribution, not just seeking solutions. In food, water, religion, we remove pollution. All of it. A lot of how we treat the earth, a lot of people learn from faith practices. Like we dominate over everything. How is that working for us right now? Exactly. Right. So I challenge religion too, as a pastor, yes. I challenge all organized religion. I don't care what it is. I challenge it all. This hip hop forestry, this for hip hop, every complexion is worthy of protection. I'll pause right there on that one. This for hip hop, every complexion is worthy of protection. Every time a police car pulls up behind me, something just happens to me like, Every time a pickup truck pulls up behind me and I see a rifle in the back, I'm just like, We don't put as many, laws on the shotgun, but they put them on the handgun. That's racist right there. Who uses a shotgun? Who uses a rifle versus who has access to a handgun? Care for the land and the people. That's true progression. Got to care for both. See, I feel like I sit at the intersection of both. Being in forestry, being in diversity. It's a very burdened position to have, to be honest with you. Because you got to talk to everybody, and everybody knows what they know, and everybody thinks they're right, and everybody's a part of the problem. They just don't realize that they are. And we're just talking around each other instead of talking to each other. This for hip hop started in New York. Now it hits the planet, which it did. Hip hop is taking over. It's the highest grossing genre right now in the world, okay? I think after Thriller, but still. It's $1 billion industry now. Started in the Bronx from people who were struggling, broke, fighting for their voice to be heard. And now it's around the planet. Carolina with forestry, because forestry in the U.S. was practiced first in North Carolina. Carolina with forestry, land is not just to be managed. It's to be respected because we all been neglected. Two communities come together in one body, let's protect it. The way we talk about land sometimes pings me because we talk about managing land instead of embracing the land. We talk about doing things on the land that the land does by its damn self already. And we actually can't do it better than the land. We never have been able to. Is that fact what I'm talking right now? Yeah, it's fact. That's why you're quiet. It's factual what I'm talking. It's factual. That's why we try to do what we do in the environment. We can't beat out Mother Nature. We try, but we can't. Can we go to the slideshow now? So with that, I feel like when I use my voice sometimes, I'm always like, oh boy, I wonder who I'm going to tick off today. And then I go, oh yes, I wonder who I'm going to elevate or encourage today. And so so that's why I say I feel like I always sit at the intersection. So strap in and let's get ready to have a conversation. Well, actually, no, you strap in and listen to my conversation with myself. Yeah, there we go. Okay, here we go. Next, oh, that's right. I'm in the driver's seat, my bad. Inclusion, innovation, and intersectionality. Transforming our fields, one relationship at a time. That's my friend Jerry Jondro. He's of the Ojibwe tribe out of Michigan. That's my fourth album, A Conversation with Polly Murray. How many people in here have ever heard of Polly Murray? Let me ask a later question. How many people here have heard of Rosa Parks? First one to not give up her seat on the bus. Did it basically as a girl. I would probably say she's one of the first non-gender conforming activists, lawyers, priests. She actually worked at Yale. She's from Maryland, but lived in North Carolina. And she was powerful. I wish I got an opportunity to meet her because I feel like Polly Murray really is the fuel. She's the wind beneath my wings. Those shoulders are the shoulders that I'm standing on. And then my grandparents. On my mom's side, that's Calvin and that's Ida. Sometimes people ask me, how did you get interested in forestry? And I said, well, why don't you ask me how did I get interested in outdoors first? Because it started with my grandparents. Growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, it's the biggest urban area, if you will, in the state of Alabama. But I had the fortune of having these grandparents who were actually not removed from slavery. And in their backyard, they had 3 gardens. And they would grow, we grew everything. Squash, cabbage, carrots. Like whenever I would get hungry, Grandma, I want something to eat. Well, go out there and pick something. Then I pick it and I bring it back in the house. And then before I start eating it, she go, okay, now we're gonna be thankful. We're gonna be thankful for it. I want you to pay attention to the cultural values that are being instituted, okay? Then she said, then we're gonna talk about how this got planted, how it grew. And she would talk about the seeds, she would show them to me and show how her and my granddad tilled the land, cared for it, and what they would do every day, every week. And she was like, that's how we eat. So what my grandparents taught me is how to respect the land because it feeds us. Wow, it started. Thank you, Nicole, for mentioning that I'm an Eagle Scout because being in the Boy Scouts, and I'm glad that the Boy Scouts took long enough, but they finally have expanded it now, and now it's not just boys. It just took us, I don't know, since the beginning. But anyway, men, we move slower than women sometimes, so sorry about that. And being in the Boy Scouts and going out in the field and camping and learning wilderness survival, if you will, I learned to embrace the forest because what I also figured out is just like the forest will feed me, the forest will also protect me, especially if I respect it. That's what I learned as a Boy Scout. If you respect what's going on outdoors, you'll be okay in it. Even when the storms come, pay attention to what the animals are doing. Go do what they're doing. And hopefully you'll survive like they will. It was like, don't remove yourself from society, don't remove yourself from nature. The problem is that society tries to remove itself from nature. But we're all in it, we're in it right now. We're in it right now. Some people have specializations in schools like nature and society, nature and people. And I'm like, that's kind of funny. It just is. It's all right, the mic is doing this thing, but you can still hear me, can't you? Yeah. Next I want to talk about this one. Oh. Take a quick break. Tell me if we go. This is what yoga will do. It makes it big strong.
Energizer, buddy.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Ready? No, you still gotta get it. Ready, James? Up. Reverend James Orange. He died in 2008, born in 1942. Reverend James Orange has a baby sister. Her name is Marion Orange, and she married this man named Thomas Easley, and then they, did their thing, and they had a child named Thomas Easley. But James Orange, in particular, was the first field lieutenant appointed by Martin Luther King ever. The first field lieutenant appointed by Martin Luther King. So what gets me is that I want you to understand, that's the kind of blood I have running in my veins. So when we talk about these discussions around forestry, and even when people who want to protest, people definitely have to protect themselves when they're putting themselves out there on the line, because where I come from in Alabama, and even when I was growing up, we fight over the kind of stuff that we're talking about. Physically fight. And people have lost their lives. So at the institution that I'm at now, I'm like, the hardest thing we're doing is having a conversation. So why is it so daggone hard to have a conversation? If you're smart, you won't raise your hands or your feet at me, so why can't we just sit down and have a conversation? Because I don't think people usually come to the table willing to not do what it is that you're planning to do. Whatever happened to no action? No action. Sit still. Let's wait. Let's figure this out as a community. Whatever happened to that? Because what I realize is a lot of people don't really come to no action. They come to try to get you to get on my side. So that means I'm trying to get you to action. And in a way, no action is action. My question is, what's the problem with no action? Then action. Because one thing we're not having still today is a great discussion. I thank my uncle for being a peaceful man. You know, it's weird. This man got beat upside the head, hit upside the head with bats, 2x4s, dogs sicked on him too. And we be having conversations, and he talk about Dr. King, my uncle would. And he would always say, you know, Dr. King never said nothing bad about white people. And he said, that's why I don't do it either. He said, because if he could be stabbed in the chest and still not, I guess I can. Now for me, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I'm looking at my uncle like, are you crazy? How is it that you can do it and then I want to do it, but then I go, well, shoot, if he got beat upside his head and he still found a way to find some peace, I want to see if I can too. But don't put your hands on me because you won't get them back. This is how I talk about myself from time to time. Forest Service, because when I went to undergrad, I went to Alabama A&M University. It's the only historical black college and university in this country that produces black foresters. So for me, that's the first bulldog I say go. Go Bulldogs. Because Alabama A&M's bulldog. I also went to the University of Georgia as an exchange student. Who knows what their mascot is? Funny, isn't it? And now I work at Yale. Who knows what their mascot is? So maybe it was destined. Maybe I manifested it. Maybe, I don't know. But from a geneticist, was a forester, man, I miss those days. And the Eagle Scout and Alabama A&M, for me, I credit that's how I got into forestry. Alabama A&M. Which for me, I always have to highlight Alabama A&M because a lot of times in my bio, people acknowledge Iowa State and NC State. And I said, no, represent the place that gave me a shot. Because Iowa State and NC State didn't give me a shot. I had to prove myself to them. See, in my community, we actually give you a chance for you to prove it a lot of times. Those are the values that I embrace. So say my school, Alabama A&M University. How have scouting, forestry, genetics, hip hop, that's a lot, and the legacy of social justice combined in my work? Through my passion for working to bridge people of all backgrounds and identities through unifying power and natural resources. But here's what it can look like. See, this to me is something that a lot of us are afraid to do. Don't get me wrong, I'm still nervous. How do you combine your interest, your love, your passion, and your career? How do you do it all at once? Now, unlike most people who are in forestry, my dad didn't teach me about forestry. He didn't know anything about it. So I didn't grow up with it. I didn't learn to appreciate the discipline. I don't have it. And that's one of the differences when we talk, that's one of the racial cultural differences. See, when I went off to undergrad, first I didn't know I was going to undergrad because I made a couple of bad decisions as a youth. But when I got to college, all I wanted to do was not go back home to Birmingham. See, I didn't know I wanted to fix the world. I just knew I didn't want to go back to my mom and my dad's house. So when I asked that question about who's African American in the room, see, there's a conversation there's a number of conversations that are not happening. And we want to argue over resources, but tell me about the people. Can you tell me about the people actually? See, I don't argue about the environment no more because what I realize is if you're not where the people are, I'm trying not to laugh at you in your face. Because if we say we're trying to save the environment, well, who are we saving the environment from? Because who's using it? The people. So then who you need to be talking to? We give these anthropomorphic qualities to the forest, like the forest talking back to us. Protect our water. If the water is talking back to you, you might be dead. But just let that sink in. We put those kind of qualities on the resources, but then how do we talk about each other though? Trees are this beautiful thing. It's amazing. It gives us our oxygen, right? It helps us to live. But what am I doing for you right now? What am I doing for you? And what are you doing for me? See, if we don't get this straight with each other, we'll never get this straight in 20 or 100 years. We never will. So I try to combine my loves. And if you notice, in all of them, I look different. Like I am a chameleon, right? Like when I go to work, I look like, well, minus the beard. Now I tried a little something, you know. It's still cute, I know. Okay. Hope you're giggling because you agree. That better be a yes. To me, this is how I think I show up in the world every day. I'm born on the 4th of July, so that's why you know that I don't play about my independence, right? But I think I show up as a Scorpio every day. Very strong presence. And then that's the nice guy there in the forest. What's up, y'all? What's happening? You know what I'm saying? You know, my species I love was, you know, loblolly pine. You know, that's how I got my first introduction into forestry, you know. And then you got this guy over here, the guy that's in the suit who wants to do work a lot of times. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a business too, but I want to do this work, but it's hard because you're dealing with a lot of raw emotion. So for the next few minutes, this is what I want to do. I want to talk about my career to give you an opportunity to see how I think and how I process things. When does your career begin? I think your career ends when you end. I don't think your career ends when you retire. I think your career ends when you end. When you say, take that final breath, that's when it ends. But when does it begin? For some people, their career probably started in their childhood. Because there's some folks who can tell you how they got into forestry from being, you know, like a youngin'. But me, I came into it as an 18-year-old. So for me, my career started when I got to college. And in essence, in some ways, you can probably say that this is my career, but I'm so much more than this. So Alabama A&M, job, I worked with the Forest Service. I actually worked up in Montana, in Bozeman, Montana, on the Gallatin National Forest. Did a lot of timber sale prep. Oh, I had a lot of fun up there. And then being the only black person in the county, I really had a lot of fun. It would trip me out that I would be walking down the street and some people like, yo, Drew, what's up? And then I'd be like, what's up? We had a good time hanging out with you last night. And I'm like, it wasn't me. So then I started drinking like them, but instead of seeing black people, I kept blacking out. I tried to see what they saw. It didn't work. Left there, went back to grad school, Iowa State to get my master's. Anybody know why I got HWI out there? Say it again.
Historically white.
Historically white. See, I want to ask you something. How can we be historically black and you be predominantly white? Because if I'm historically black, and the only reason my institution was founded because I couldn't come to your institution. So who's historical anything then? It's racism and sexism in language. So I challenge that. So thank you so much, Gary. You're right, historical white institution. Nobody's predominant over me. Remember what I said in my first talk? I'm not a minority. There's nothing minor about me. Then I did this internship, urban forestry. So now I'm learning urban forestry even though I didn't study it. I did a lot of remote sensing. That was fun. Then I got this job to work with people at NC State University. And then I decided to work full time and get my doctorate. That's kind of insane, just to let you know. It will change you. My hair still hasn't grown back. I'm not the same, okay? I'm not the same. And then I became a campus pastor. If you want to learn how to talk to people and work with people, become a pastor. And sit your ego aside when you do it. I was a campus pastor for 4 years. And then I got the job at Yale University. I would say I was kind of prepared for what I came into. Here's the kind of questions that I had to start asking myself. What kind of job do I want? What kind of life do I want to live? And what legacy do I want to leave behind? This is a different talk because it's not just forestry with me. It's community with me. See, this is the kind of life I want to live. See, that was my first student I ever recruited to NC State. Now he's his own hip hop artist. Makes more money than I do, actually, making music. This is my second one. He makes more money than that's me, and him, that's him put together. See, what I want to do is I don't want to own really anything. I just want to create opportunity for other people, create an environment for people to empower themselves. That's really what I want to do. Because there are a group of people, while there are others of us talking about the environment, there are a group of people out here in the world who have not been able to manifest their own passions. And those are the people that I'm trying to connect to. How do you know you have your dream job? Maybe it's the job that you want to keep. But one thing that I learned working in forestry and then going into academia is every job will wear itself out at a certain point, and then I want to go somewhere else, have another dream. Keep in mind, one day you may want to leave that job, and when is it time to leave? For me, time to leave is when I can't go to work and be myself anymore. For me, going to work and feeling like I'm being attacked all of the time, and I'm not saying because I'm sensitive, I'm saying because I see it happening. So what kind of job? What job? I thought it was timber sale prep at first. I love being a field technician. But then after a while, I was like, well, I think I'm a little tired of going up and down these mountains, carrying things and losing weight. I lost 137 pounds, shoot. And so I kept moving. And as I kept moving, I kept growing. And as I kept growing, I kept implementing things. Every time I learn something new, I apply it. I don't wait, I apply it. But as I'm looking at jobs, I go, how did I find out about forestry? I told you, undergrad, Alabama A&M. Who do I know that had the job before me? At the time, I knew no one. So I entered forestry with a clean slate. So I didn't have an environmentalist to curve my thinking, and I didn't have a forester curving my thinking. It was just me sitting in the classroom. But at the same time, I did have people curving my thinking because I'm at a black school learning from white professors. And so I'm learning this field from people who don't look like me. But I say that actually as a compliment because I had some dope professors. They really care for us as students. And a lot of them are still there now at Alabama A&M. And then I thought, how do I want to use this job to give back? Now I want to give you some thoughts about something before you go. We were having a conversation earlier. One of the things we're doing at Yale is we're trying to prep our students on how to strategize more, how to communicate better. Not to capitulate and also not to be intimidated, by older, or longer influences or traditions that we're trying to dismantle or challenge. First, learn the history of the institution. Like me going to Yale and knowing that Yale's first endowments were founded on the backs of my ancestors, I didn't go to Yale expecting to see black people. I went to Yale knowing that they played a significant part in the transatlantic slave trade. So I went to Yale to actually kick butt, to be honest with you, not to kiss it. Who founded it? So you can learn a lot about a discipline in the industry if you just go back into history. We can talk positive things about Gifford Pinchot and we can talk negative things about Gifford Pinchot. Let's just be real. Whether it's forestry or eugenics, we can talk one or the other. And please don't try to argue with me on that. We can go ahead and Google that, okay? I'm not trying to piss you off. I'm just trying to tell you the truth. Because if you can't handle the truth, that's where fragility comes from. And I don't have time for your fragility. What's the personality of the institution? The Forest Service recently did this kind of work, at the Forest Service. And one of the things they figured out about their personality is that they have a big personality around autonomy. It's hard to go far and then try to bring it back in. That's the problem with our country right now. We've gone too daggone far. And we're trying to bring it back. Who's in power? You know who's in power? Who determines where the ship goes? But what do those in power engage in? That's what I figured out when I went to NC State. That's the question that I challenge everyone. If you ever want to change something, don't just go in there and say, I'm about to change. Go in there and learn it first. Learn the institution. And then as you're learning, you go, okay, I see what they're interested in, and I want to tear it down. I'll be honest, yes, I'm an infiltrator. Do you want power? Yes, I do. Don't act like it's a bad thing, because it's not. And how do you get that power without changing? You can't. So I work every day to make sure that I don't assimilate to a culture that I know has torn people down and has changed them. Like I said, I like being black. I'm not going to let you change me. But I want to have a discussion with you because I believe that we're all brilliant. See, I believe genius is common. Going back to something that Zach said earlier, the issue with forestry, just like it's the same issue with scholarship, we only have one way to assess intelligence. It's kind of ignorant. You can't just assess my intelligence with a test. If you give me a test and I don't pass it, then you ask me questions and I tell it, did I actually learn something? Yeah. So what legacy do I want to leave as I bring this to a close? I want to leave a legacy like that. I want to leave a legacy of people of all shapes and sizes and all conditions believing in themselves, saying, I can make this world a better place, but in order to do it, I got to fight for my corner. So a lot of us want to go change the world. Change your corner. Do it where you actually can do it at. And that's what I work with my students and other professionals to do. And I'll work with anybody. I don't care what you look like. Because I just love people. Because what hurts you actually does hurt me. So what does this have to do with forestry? I'll tell you. Why is diversity so hard? Because you can't solve a problem until you realize you're part of the problem you're trying to solve. What's your part in this issue? I'll tell you 2 quick stories and then I'm done. I was at the University of Georgia. I was the only black student in the school, in the Warnell School of Forest Resources. Anybody go to UGA in here? Anybody from UGA? No, okay, nobody from UGA, it's okay. That's all right. Everybody's not perfect, cool. I was wondering if you're gonna catch that. That's all right, I just had to wake you up. Okay, it's all right, okay, here we go. I did poorly my first semester. Rick, I did poorly. I'm used to making 3.8s, 3.9 GPAs. I took the lowest amount of classes, y'all, and I made a 2.3. Hey, right, Shady, yeah, hey. You ain't had to say that out loud though, but okay. I'll talk to you later. And I'm getting ready to go back to Alabama A&M, embarrassed, hurt, tore down. And sometimes, let me say this to people, sometimes if you want to know how do we make some of these changes, sometimes it takes someone who looks like you in your group to hit you in the head for you to shift. So it took a black male to shift me at UGA. He was like, T-Rock, because that was my nickname back then. I was like 300 plus pounds then. I was still cute though. Okay. And he was like, man, what you getting ready to do? I said, I'm getting ready to go back to Alabama A&M. And he said, man, don't do that. Stay here 1 more semester. Show them what I know about you. I said, I thought he was trying to be fun. No, that I'm stupid. He said, see, that's your problem. You too busy focusing on the fact that you're the only black person in the class. Now, how would he know that? Because he's black. Here's the other thing about my friend Shalon. He was graduating. So he's accomplished something. Shouldn't I listen to him? He said, you know what? I understand you're the only black person up there in the school, T. But look, a lot of those folks up there went to school already and transferred in here together. Some of them looking at you funny because they don't know you. They're not all looking at you like that, like you don't belong here. And he said, and by the way, didn't you choose to come here? And I went, yeah. He said, so you got a responsibility too. Don't just let them come to you. You also should be going to them. Let them see how amazing you are. And I went, wow. So I had to learn a lesson about myself. I had to learn a lesson about me. I had to get out of my own way. And that next semester I stayed and I ended up making a 3.75, which was the highest GPA in the school that semester. And let me say this, and I am bragging. I was a junior, took all senior level classes and 1 graduate course. And I aced everything, which told me that I really am intelligent. And I didn't even have to have their prerequisites to pass their class. So what do you think I graduated from? UGA or Alabama A&M? Because UGA offered me all the scholarships to stay. I went back to Alabama A&M. See, that's my value system. I'm going to go back to who gave me a chance. Not always to the people who made me prove to you that you needed to give me a chance. So I'm saying this to you so you won't miss out on something, because a number of us could be missing out on it. People like me, we're not scared to say no to you no more. People like me know we can shut you down because times are changing. And we're not running scared no more. And the younger they are, the tougher they are, the more impatient they are. For good reason. You created them. You told us, just like my mom and dad told me I could do anything. You let me sit and play on this daggone thing called a smartphone. You let me play with games. You let me play with toys that talk back to me. So don't get pissed off at me when I challenge everything about you. I told you, genius is coming. That was the first story I learned about me. Here's the second story, and this is not about doing drama. I worked at an institution. I was the director. And I said, after working there for 10 years, we need to restructure things, because the things that you want me and my office to do, we can't do it without some changes. Leaders said, we'll make change. Nothing happened. 3 years went by, nothing happened. Here's what I wanted them to do. Change the position, make it an assistant dean position. We'll expand it, expand my role. Really, you don't have to expand my role because I was already teaching 3 classes at the time. I'm working more than most people here in the school. Make my associate a director, and make it. Then I just had, we had all of these different things to help them out. It didn't happen. Nicole, what'd you say my position was at Yale? This is what happens when you don't listen to reason. And now they pissed off at my old institution because I'm not there. But guess what they did after I left? They turned my position into an associate dean position. Some people even asked me to reapply for it. Crazy. But they turned it into an associate dean position. And then they said, Thomas, because people are like, Thomas, aren't you proud? We actually did something. And I said, no, because you still didn't listen to me. I said assistant dean. So see, there's some people who do one good act and then you want a pat on the back. No, you still didn't listen. So they created this position, and it's the first of its kind. See, my idea was to fulfill a position that there were already 3 of its kind. So what did that prove? All they had to do was ask. So what that told me is it wasn't an issue with the position, it was an issue with me. So the second lesson I learned is if someone doesn't know how to respect you, value you, and they have their own personal insecurities, be careful. And if those people are in leadership positions, watch out. And if that's you, if it's you, because we all battle with our own insecurities, all of us, if that's you, what I want to ask you to do is stop what you think you're about to do and check yourself before you make any further decisions, because you're about to make your world and other people's world worse. All because you won't get out of your way. So what should you do now? Since we want to save the world. Oh, this was in the School of Natural Resources. This is where forestry was housed. That's what forestry has to do with it. See, if I wasn't defending forestry, maybe I wouldn't be dealing with some of the headaches that I'm dealing with. But no, I want to defend forestry, but not for the fact that we can keep doing what we've been doing, so that we will change what we've been doing. I became a geneticist so that we wouldn't use the forest as much. I wanted us to have our own, plant something different so we wouldn't have to keep going there, because we're hurting the planet. The proof is there. Climate change is real. South Africa was in drought last year. Come on, y'all. 2 major hurricanes just hit my state, North Carolina, and people down there struggling. And no, I don't think it's a natural disaster, but I do think that it is a disaster. I think we're contributing to what's happening on this planet. And if we don't get it together with each other, let alone get it together with that resource out there, we got problems coming, and they already here. And this is why diversity is so important, because with my Native American background, my grandfather was Seminole Native, and he would break things down for me, and he would teach me like this. You see that tree? That's your ancestor. I didn't understand that as an 8-year-old. I'd just be sitting with my granddad, sitting on his lap, just bouncing. That's your ancestor. I'm about to go climb that thing. You see that grass right there? Yeah? Don't just step on that. That gives us our food, okay? You know that water you were drinking? I'm like, You know, he was like, that didn't come from the faucet, son. That came from a place you can't even see yet. And I'm like, I'm 8 years old. I don't know what he's talking about. Now I'm 40, and I miss my granddad. I wish my granddad had been a forester. I wish those values were in my discipline. Not just what we harvest and what we use to make products, because we're going to continue to make them. Trust me, even if you embrace environmentalism, you contribute into it too. We're going to still continue to make them. You don't believe me, look at what you're wearing. But we do need to stop. We got to stop some things, like for real. And if we don't do it, we're only doing it to ourselves, and the only people we can blame is us. So I want to invite everyone to do something. Please explore and imagine. But explore and imagine with each other. I'm glad I've met so many people here. I'm not the same person. I will not go back to New Haven, Connecticut, or to West Virginia tomorrow the same person. And I'm going to take what I've gotten from people and apply it. See, the reason that I talked about Jerry Johndro in that first slide was because he was the one that took me out to the forest and showed me how to harvest syrup without harming the tree, the way that his people did it. Oh, wow. He taught me how to filtrate water the way his people did it. And that changed me. I'm like, I just thought about everything I learned in the classroom. I'm like, man, I got some more information to add now. But that didn't make me go back and hate my disciplines. It's just like religion. The more I learn about my religion, I'm like, oh my God, like my faith hasn't gone away, but I challenge the infrastructure of my religion, no. So I'm challenging the infrastructure of my discipline. I want to challenge it. I'm challenging it. But I also want to challenge also the people who resist the discipline too. Search for people that are interesting in your field. Let's learn from some other people. There's a different narrative that needs to be told. I think one of the problems we have is hanging on to Gifford Pinchot and Aldo Leopold. It's 2018. It's 21st century. We got some new things to do now. Mark just told me about his dad, right? Hey, I want to talk about him. Accept challenges, but manage your expectations. Remember how I said I went to Yale? Remember how I said I went up there? Remember, no one owes you anything. Not in this planet. Ask for help because no one makes it on their own. No one makes it on their own. There's no such thing as a bootstrap unless it's made up by people. You're not the only one going through what you're going through. None of us in here are terminally unique. None of us. Be congruent. Do what you say you're going to do. That's not as easy as it reads for some people. Do what you say you're going to do. Focus on the things that feed you and rejuvenate you positively. I think some of us focus a lot on negative things. I'm learning I have to take care of myself, take care of my health, but don't avoid the negative things. You can't fix a problem if you're not willing to face it. But it'll stay there, even if you're not looking at it, it's still there. Your blueprint is your career. In my opinion, how do we fix this? We create a new blueprint. We do it together. I don't have the answers, but I think my granddad had some of the answers. I don't have them all, but I think Mark got some. I don't have them all, but I think Courtney got some. I don't have them all, though. And remember this, there's no substitution for hard work. So let's not avoid the hard work because we are in for the long haul. And see the end goal. Let's always start with the end in mind, pay attention. And my thing is, I think our ancestors did this, and I don't think that they did this. This is what I mean. The end goal for them was probably domination, legacy, being on top. And it's worked. Look at where we are right now. I'm saying, can we see a world, number one, where we don't need diversity deans? I want to see a world where I don't need a president. I would love to see a world where I don't need police. And I would love to see a world where I'm not arguing with environmentalists, conservationists, or foresters over a world that we all need, but we all hurt at the same time. And with that, hope you all enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.